thank you so again. So it's my pleasure to give you some information about our live. No, it's not a live project. It's a cost project. In fact, it's a European raptor biomonitoring facility, and that's a European network for pollutants in birds of prey. So this is a huge project. Unfortunately, it's not a research project. It's a project on communication and exchange of ideas, methods, and information. So our project started in 2017, and due to the corona pandemic, it has been extended until 2022. So a total of 26 country representatives have signed the memorandum of understanding, and we have 44 memberships in our member committee. The challenge is that...
Sorry to interrupt you, Oliver, but we only see, you don't see your presentation in full screen. We only see the first slide. So you have to press the F5 button, I think.
Okay.
Anna, F5 glaube ich, oder?
That's strange.
You have to go on full screen. So
I'm on full screen. I'm on full screen.
Okay, then you have shared the wrong window with us. So you have to unshare. Yeah, you have to unshare the window again. And then go on the arrow button again and get the right one.
Just let me see. Yes. Okay. Here I'm again. Do you see it now?
I think it's not full screen, but it works also that way. Yes, go on. Yeah, click on that. Yeah. No.
Okay, now you see it?
We see it in a small version, but we see it, yeah.
I have it full screen. It's strange. It's strange. Sorry, it's maybe my old laptop. I don't know. I'm in the field right now. I'm not in the office and not at home, so I have to deal with a technique I have available here. So the challenge is that environmental contaminants create a multi-billion euro cost to human health and wildlife, and the EU objective of the environmental action program number 7 is non-toxic environment. And EU chemical regulations are based on assessment of risk and impose risk mitigation measurements, so to restrict or ban dangerous poisons or chemicals. So there's a need for biomonitoring data to enhance the chemical risk assessment, to enhance the assessment of effectiveness of regulations, and to provide an early warning system of emerging contaminant problems. The structure of our cost project of ERBFacility is that we have this management committee consisting of chair, vice chair, and the members. We have a core group, which are mainly based on the work package leaders, work package 1, 2, 3, and 4. I will later show you the work packages, and some other guys like the scientific communication manager, the grant holder, and the short-term scientific mission coordinator. The objectives of the projects are to use raptors as sentinels of environmental contamination and to answer the 3 main questions. Are European and relevant global and regional chemicals laws and conventions effective in reducing environmental exposure to contaminants? What are the environmental risks of specific chemicals? And are there emerging contaminant problems needing remedial action? So the research coordination we are trying to organize within the framework of our program is that we want to create a European raptor biomonitoring scheme by assessing current capacities for pan-European raptor biomonitoring with a focus on...
Sorry, just a second, Oliver. It's again the same problem, but Hannah has your presentation on her laptop, on her computer, so she can start it, I think. Okay. You simply have to unshare your screen and then Hannah will share it. Hannah, does it work? Yeah. Here it is. Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So, but then I have to ask Anna to go on with slides, or how
Yes,
does it work?
please.
Yes, please. Okay. So here you saw the structure. Next, please. And the objectives. Yeah, the objectives of the study is that raptors are used to. I've talked about this already. So next, please. Here we are, exactly. So we are creating a European raptor biomonitoring scheme by assessing current capacities for raptor biomonitoring with focus on current capabilities to detect temporal and spatial trends in contaminant exposure, focusing on selected contaminants, not on all which is available. We are trying to create a framework on a European raptor specimen bank so that the specimen bank allows you access to samples spread in specimen banks throughout of Europe. And we are working on a European raptor sampling program, so where we are creating and providing standards and protocols which are helping to harmonize the sampling methods, but also analytical methods. Next, please. We have three arenas, so to say. So there's an analytical arena with the labs and the ecotoxicologists. These are covered by work package 1 and 2. We have the collection arena. This covers the national historical or history museums, the environmental specimen banks, and other collections at research institutions, for example. And this is covered in work package 3. And we have the field arena, which combines or discusses topics with field ornithologists, ecologists, and raptor conservationists. And this is covered in work package 4. Next slide, please. So coming to the first arena, the analysis arena, covered by the first two working groups. And here, the goal is to coordinate research and build capacity through networking and collaboration among the mentioned groups. Next, please. Within this analysis arena, we are assessing current capacities for the assessment of contaminant exposure, linking researchers and analytical laboratories. We are creating a pan-European assessment and reporting trends in exposure, and we are providing guidance on integration with the regulatory risk assessments and effective evaluations. Next, please. So we have identified appropriate species which we are using to study contaminants. We have identified sample matrices for the measurements, and we are piloting a joint assessment. So this is a proof of concept. I will later show you in more detail. Next, please. In this first arena, in the analysis arena, we have organized a workshop on forensic wildlife toxicology in Croatia, sorry, in Bucharest, in Romania, with participating countries. Here you can see in the slide. Next, please. And in this wildlife forensic workshop, we were discussing and working on the understanding how to approach investigations vary between countries regarding necropsy, forensic and analytical methods, how legal regulations on wildlife poisoning vary between the countries, and we identified gaps in the knowledge and constraints to the diagnosis of poisoning. And we were working on the potential to form an informal network between the participating laboratories, including the aims and functioning of any such network. Next, please. Coming to the next arena, the collection arena. The main aim is here to construct a meta database of the existing raptor specimen and stimulating the expansion of raptor collections. Next, please. So the context or the background of all it is, as I said before, the environmental specimen banks, they have only a few raptor samples. A good example is a specimen bank in Sweden, for example, or in the UK. They have good collection of raptor samples, but others don't have. And if they have only a few years or recent decades only. The benefit is that they're designed for contaminant monitoring. And for example, the National History Museums, they have large collections, but mainly dry material like skin, bones, and eggs. They are not designed for contaminant monitoring. But many museums also collect and store contemporary raptor samples. Wildlife research institutions, on the other hand, they might have many raptor samples available for longer periods, and they are often stored for contaminant monitoring. So the idea here is to develop a framework to link and expand existing collections and propose new regional collections. Next, please. The objectives of the working group or work package 3 is to build capacity through networking and collaboration among ecotoxicologists and raptor collections and stimulate the expansion of the collections. Next, please. So the achievements so far from this work group are the review of existing raptor collections in Europe. So they identified 116 collections of raptor samples, identified a priority of species for the collection to store for pan-European contaminant monitoring, and they provided guidelines on shipping of samples, addressing legal constraints, designed a framework for the metadatabase, and developed a network over 100 collections across Europe and supply of many hundred samples to the ERBFacility proof of concept and live APEX demonstration studies. So these are two studies which are showing and helping how useful those samples are and how helpful it is to have analysis of selected contaminants in selected bird of prey species all across Europe. Next, please. Coming to the last working package, that's the field arena. And here, the field arena assesses the current capacities. There is developing a framework, standards and protocols for European raptor sampling program. Next, please. The role of the field arena is to structure for collecting the right samples. Next, please. Hannah, please go faster through this single slide. Guidance to collect the best samples and supporting data, solutions to constraints that prevent people from collecting samples or data, guidance on how to pursue more people to collect samples, the proof of concept to show that the sampling program can work for one or more case study group of contaminants, and to provide this training school and ambassador network to promote guidance. Okay, next, please. So far as a survey, this is the result of the survey, and you see here the most studied bird of prey species. That's, for example, the common buzzard, mainly studied in the field. There's a lot of information on field from field studies, from collections, and from the analysis of different contaminants. And yeah, you can go through this graph and see that the most common birds are mainly studied, and more rare birds are more seldom studied, of course. This is depending on the distribution across Europe. Okay, next, please. In this field arena, participants from the field are involved in this whole structure of ERBFacility by optimizing and simplifying protocols for sampling from live birds and from collection of dead birds, to motivate and communicate with the field researchers results from ecotoxicologists and the museums into the field, and training and support people which are involved in field work. Here in this bars below, you see the constraints for sampling raptors identified by the questionnaire or by the people who have responded to the questionnaire. To increase the number of long-term raptor projects, for example, is a wish of those people involved in field studies. Provide protocols for collecting samples, increase the number of raptor monitoring schemes, and so on. And the upper right is the Advice Hub. This will be a digital or interactive possibility for people using the internet and learn how samples can be taken, how species can be identified, how to store samples, and how to send samples across Europe or within a country to the appropriate lab for analysis. And then in the upper right, you see a slide which talks about the value of contextual data. That's the background information when finding a carcass, which information should be provided to the lab, which is finally analyzing the carcass, performing the necropsy. Next slide, please. So coming now to the proof of concept. And this is, I would say, unexceptional because, as I said, the cost is only providing money for the exchange of information, for meeting, for workshops and so on, but not for real science work at the lab. And this proof of concept is based on a very motivated people working in this ERBFacility project, and they are analyzing, they are sending, they are running samples of a selected species across all participating European countries. So the general objective is to test the capacity of the European raptor biomonitoring facility for pan-European monitoring in raptors, and to test the capacity to assess spatial variation in contaminant residue levels across Europe based on a 100 times 100 kilometer grid. So we collected samples, next slide please, from tawny owls. This is the species which has been selected from each square across Europe of 10,000 square kilometers. This is a grid of 100 times 100 kilometers. And the matrix sample identified for this species is the liver. Next slide, please. These are the labs and countries involved in analyzing the contaminants. In this case, we have identified rodenticides and lead as a heavy metal. These countries are also involved into collecting the samples and in shipment. And now we got this data, and Rafael Mateo from Spain is compiling or doing most of the work by compiling this data, and then we can start to analyze those data. Next slide, please. So this is a lot of information I gave you, and of course I will share my presentation with you, and you can also take a look at the web page of ERBFacility shown here, and there you will find the latest news, and there you can get in contact with members, and if you have any specific questions, I'm happy to take your questions. Thank you.